Spring is here, at least where I live, and with springtime comes standardized testing season. Particularly for all of you AP bio teachers out there, Cinco de Bio, which my guest today introduced me to that term based on the AP bio exam day, and I can't stop laughing about it. Cinco de Bio, though, it will be here before we all know it. So I just think it makes the release of today's interview even better. I am thrilled to introduce you all to today's guest on the Secondary Science Simplified podcast. But honestly, she probably doesn't need much of an introduction for many of you because so many of you have requested for me to interview her and get her on the podcast. And that's Tiffany of AP Bio Penguins. Tiffany has taught high school science and math for 13 years. Throughout that time, she's taught AP biology, magnet biology, anatomy and physiology, pre-calculus support, microbio, research, and high school support. Her passion is teaching AP biology, and she's taught it for 13 years. During her specialist degree, she investigated technology applications for education and created an independent AP review account, which is her AP Bio Penguins on Instagram. And that is where she shares reels and resources. She posts quick quiz games and periodically holds Instagram live review sessions. Tiffany has a BS in chemistry, a BS in biology, an MAT in secondary education, and an EDS in instructional technology. She enjoys spending her free time going on adventures with her two boys, affectionately known as Baby Bear and Peanut. Of course, in this episode, we talk all about her AP Bio review account that is free for students and teachers alike to utilize. But we also cover so much more. Tiffany shares all of the ways that she freely supports AP Bio teachers with resources and her email list, and she answers, honestly, I probably asked her 100 questions, all about labs, FRQs, review, exam prep, grading, and so much more for her AP Bio classes. Y'all, I took notes while she was talking multiple times because she just had that much value to share. And like always, I found even when I do these niche interviews for specific content areas or classes, you may not teach, people always come back later and say like, I don't even teach that and I learned so much. So I really want to encourage you, whether or not you teach AP Bio, give this episode a listen. There are so many things she shares that I think would serve a variety of teachers. I cannot wait to get this conversation into your speakers or your headphones. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and get to my conversation for you with Tiffany of AP Bio Penguins. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited you're here. You have been very highly requested from my audience to be on the podcast.
That's kind of nervous.
You don't even be nervous. We're so excited to have you. For maybe people who don't know you, you're most known for being Tiffany of AP Bio Penguins, a review resource account on Instagram. So I would just love to know, just to start off the bat, like when you started that, did you just do it for your students? What did you predict it being? What was like your initial vision? How did that all come to be?
So I don't remember what year it was, but I had an Instagram for my class. And I still have the same Instagram for my classroom. And Instagram had started out this new thing with stories that you could put little poll questions and all these things. And it was set up, I think, originally just to ask funky questions. But I was like, wait a minute, I can use this educationally. So I started just posting questions each weekend to get my kids ready for their upcoming quizzes. And then they said, well, can you do this before the AP exam? So I would pull like random topics from the year out and then I would do it. And after about 2 or 3 years of this, I was like, wait a minute, I can help other kids of the world. Like they probably could use these questions too. So I posted it on the National AP Bio Facebook page and these other teachers was like, oh, and there was this outpouring of a ton of kids to my page. And then I thought, wait, why am I having all these kids come to my school account when I could just create something different? And that's when AP Bio Penguins really got started. And I think that was either 2018 or 2019 when I created the second account.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that you do it for free. I know that's been an intentional choice. And so, do you want to share more about why you've done that?
I think it's all about access. So the students that I'm working with, they're students. Most students don't have jobs. And if they do, they really shouldn't be needing to spend that money on educational stuff. Like, so it really becomes a bear of the families. And if your family can't afford to buy resources, why should that be the barrier for you to be successful on an exam? So I feel like it's all about equity of access. And I found that the free resources that are out there, they're sometimes not that good. So I wanted to make sure that there was something out there that I was giving to my students. And since it was no extra work to put it to the masses, might as well just make it available for anyone. So it started out being low impact for others, like low energy for them. But now I've kind of put in a lot more energy trying to make sure that I'm making something new for the kids every year. And I ask them, hey, what do you want this year? And so this year I'm making AP Bio math minutes. And so each day I'm posting like a math question about AP Bio. And so yesterday I did like the surface area of a sphere. And so each day I post a math video because that's important. And our kids sometimes struggle with math.
Heard that. It is so important and it is also very hard. So wait, do you start doing this from the very beginning of the year? Do you wait till spring? Like, what does that look like for the AP Bio teacher listening that's like, wait a minute, I haven't been utilizing this free resource?
So I have everything available on my website, apbiopenguins.weebly.com. Honestly, if you just Google AP Bio Penguins, you probably will pop up as the first hit. I have quizzes, games that I have open all year long. I've got review videos. I've got my 396-page review guide open all year long. I don't usually start the review stuff until I try to do February 1st, but with the exam being so early this year,
Right.
May 5th, Cinco de Bio, I had to start it at like January 26th this year, but it's just like me posting every day trying to help the kids. So usually it's just random TikTok videos throughout the year saying, hey, come be an AP Bio Penguin and access these resources. Because sometimes the teachers don't know. I think that about 50% of the new followers, they find me on their own and then they tell their teacher and then their teacher then can tell students. So if you're trying to use it all year long, it's just kind of accessing the website and using the things that are openly available all year. You don't really need to use the Instagram all year.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're going to link all that in the show notes too, so everyone can find the enormous review guide. How long did it take you to make that review guide? Or it just was like over years that you put it together?
The first time I built it, it was only like 250 pages. And that took me the whole school year. I was just building it throughout the school year. And it was designed for the self-study student, like the student that needed, some assistance getting through all the topics. Since then, it's just been maybe 3 or 4 hours, like right before the review starts, where I just add in the new things. So at this point, I just add in like the new FRQ questions because it's designed that it's broken up by the units. So there are I can statements, there's topic questions, and then at the end, there are the released multiple choice questions and the released responses. So they're all like organized together in these little unit packets.
I love it. It's beautiful. I was looking through like, this is an amazing organization. I'm obsessed. Okay, tell us more about for context for the listeners, like your situation at your school. Like, how many sections of AP Bio are you teaching? How many other preps? How many students are you seeing? How much time do you get with your students? Because I just think it's insane how much this varies among schools.
And I am blessed. So first thing I need to say is that my students never took regular bio. So my class is a concurrent class. So I have regular biology and AP biology at the same time. So we're set up as a double block. And I'm on block scheduling, so I have 90 minutes. That means I have 90 minutes every single day for the entire school year.
Wow.
My school starts in July almost. So it's the last week of July, first week of August is usually when my school year starts. So I more or less I did the math. So if you go to school for 180 days, 90 minutes a day, I have 16,200 minutes with my students, which is 270 hours. So I know that some of the stuff that I'm able to do, is more than some other teachers can. So I know how we can kind of mold that in to allow for those that don't have as much time. You flip your lessons, you can do more of the in-class stuff, kind of hands-on stuff. And then you have the kids kind of watching different people's videos.
If they've never taken biology, are they freshmen or what is the age range of your students?
So we've gone through a couple different things. When I first started at my school, they were always sophomores that had never had chemistry either. So I was teaching chemistry, biology, and AP all at once.
Wow.
Then a couple years later, we switched it to a mixed grade where there was 10th graders and 11th graders. Now we're all 11th grade, but next year we're going back to split grades. So when it's split grades, they won't have had chemistry. So I've got to teach that too.
Right.
It does take up a little bit of that time. And I do topics that are just for the state testing, while other topics are AP. So it's kind of a whole mix of everything all at once.
That's well, and so like to say you have double time, it's not like you're spoiled. You have double the stuff too if you're having to do this whole foundation. So they're getting credit for like biology 1 and AP bio when they take yours.
Correct.
When I was in high school, our AP chemistry was like that, except it was Chem 2 plus AP Chem. And that's how we got our double block, which is so nice.
What sucks also for the kids is that they have so much testing at the end of the year. As
Right.
juniors, they're taking, their English state test, they're taking their social studies state test, they're taking the biology state test, they're taking their AP exam. So I really don't see my kids for those like 2 weeks at the end of the year because they're in so much testing.
Also weird that you're like prepping them for AP bio and then probably they're taking like the bio EOC like later, which is obviously way easier for them. But
it's the day after. Like usually it's a week before. This year, with the exam being so early, it's the next day. So on the 5th, we take our AP exam, and then the 6th, we take the next exam. So, oh my God.
That's nuts. Okay, so about how many students do you have that are technically AP bio?
They're all AP.
Okay.
15 to 20. Like all the kids that are in my room are all AP.
Okay.
So because of the double blocking and I'm just concurrent, it's the same group of kids each day. Although this year we did this crisscross schedule due to, we have another campus that the kids can go to. It's our career academy. And because so many students go there for dual enrollment, we had to make my first block on one day, my second block on the next, and the second block, first block. Like it's a crisscross schedule.
Yeah, you're like, this feels overly complicated.
Yes.
Okay, so are you teaching honors and regular biology separately too, or is this all you're teaching are these double blocks?
It depends on the year. This year, I do have honors biology as well. And that one isn't every day. That one's every other day. And we do an A-B system. So Mondays and Wednesdays are the same, and Tuesday and Thursday are the same, but Friday alternates awkwardly.
Yeah, got it. Let's make it super complicated. It sounds like, okay. I love who comes up with these schedules. People will email me all the time. They'll be like, I don't feel like I have enough time to do this. And I'm like, well, tell me how much you're seeing your students. They're like, well, on Tuesdays, we see them for 37 minutes. On Wednesday, I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. It's just funny. So you do get extra time, but you're covering extra stuff. So how are you balancing that? I think one of the biggest questions all AP teachers have is how do I get through all this content without just feeling like I'm just lecturing?
So because I have 90 minutes, I chunk up my block. I keep them always moving. So we'll do something at the beginning that takes about 30 minutes. Then we'll do something else that's 30 minutes and the other 30 minutes. And I have my schedule, like I don't want my kids ever wondering what's coming next. So every Monday we take a quiz. It's always like clockwork. We take a quiz. Wednesday, same thing. We do a free response every single Wednesday. So they come in kind of knowing what the system's going to be. Fridays are usually my lab days. I have 90 minutes so I can do the whole 90-minute lab. So the goal is really to keep them moving. I start out with a lecture and then we do some type of hands-on activity that immediately applies it. If you're short on time and you don't have the 90 minutes, then you could flip your lesson. You could have a short little video for them to look at the information in advance, maybe have them reading their textbook, listening to a podcast, something of that nature. So you could have them doing something like that to introduce the information, and then they could come in and do a POGL, or they could do a mini lab or something hands-on that allows them to immediately apply the information they learned the previous night. So there's a lot of different modifications that can be made to allow for not overly lecturing.
Right. How many years do you feel like it took you till you started feeling more comfortable teaching it? Because I think for the new teacher, the first year, you're like, this is so much. It's so hard. But you've got such a good system. How long do you feel like it took you to start having a system?
I'm blessed because my first year teaching ever was AP. So I've never really known anything else. So it probably took me, I'd say 3 or 4 years before things started flowing better. And I wasn't overwhelmed because I was really overwhelmed at the beginning because I was teaching myself this information because I have a biology degree and a chemistry degree, but something about going back to the AP book and getting it to a level that the students understood and making sure I had everything, I would write notes for hours on end the night before, prepping my lectures, doing all this stuff. And I didn't have a support system. So these new teachers really need to find their support system, somebody at their school that has either taught the course or somebody in a neighboring school in your county. There's so many resources out there. And if you have nobody at your school, nobody in your county, us on Facebook will help you. The National Inky Bio Facebook
It's
group
so good.
is phenomenal. And then I write a newsletter. I don't really, trust the masses aren't going to student isn't going to somehow find this. So once you're in the AP Bio Facebook group, if you just search newsletter, you'll find my newsletter. I write a newsletter every month and it's designed for first year teachers. I tell you what I'm doing in my classroom. I tell you, hey, these are the FRQs that I like. These are the activities that I like. I give you the handouts for everything. I give you the links directly to them. So it's almost like here you go. This will help get you through. And once you find the activities you like, then, take, leave, whatever, but you now have something to build off of.
That's such a gift that you provide that. So speaking of activities and labs, I mean, I'll never forget sitting in AP Institute and going through the lab manual. We went through like probably 10 of the labs like over the course of the week, but just being so overwhelmed. And then my teacher being like, well, you don't have to do them all just like it is here. You could do alternatives. I just think that the decision fatigue and the overwhelm of like, how do I know which labs to do in the manual versus which do alternatives? Like, how do you balance that? Which do you think are the best ROI? Like, what's worth doing in its entirety? Do you kind of do your own version of everything? Like, if I'm going to put all this time and energy into prepping, or like even I feel like the labs in the lab manual, they're all like a solid week. Like your block, if you're going to truly do it how it's written out and really make it inquiry and all of that, it's really a long time. So it's like, if I'm going to invest and block out this much time, it needs to be worth it.
I agree. It's honestly a trial and error. You find a lab, you try it out, see if it works or how it works. And so after many years, I have found the ones that I like, which is why that newsletter is helpful.
Yeah.
Because in there, I'm telling them, hey, this is what was helpful. This is how to fix the drama that's going to ensue. So it kind of gives you tips and tricks. But I don't do all the labs from the manual because they're no longer required. You're just required to have a certain percentage of your class be labs.
Right.
And so I just do mini labs or an activity and all these different things. As long as they're doing hands-on science, they're doing some claim evidence reasonings, they're going to be able to, be okay for the exam. The AP exam is not going to be on a specific lab. It's going to give you the background information and then you apply your science to that. Do you want me to tell you the ones that I like?
Yeah, let me know. And it doesn't even have to be AP labs like from the manual, but just what are some of your favorite labs that you're doing?
I love the osmosis lab. So it gives the kids a visible, what is happening with diffusion because you use these little agar pieces and then you can watch the color changing as it's an acid or a base, whichever way you set it up, diffusing through the agar to change the color. And they can visibly see that a smaller cell is going to have more diffusion than a larger cell. And then they do these little baggies and they figure out the change in weight. But then I just let them do vegetables. So we see what is the concentration of a carrot? What's the concentration of celery? And we can figure out different vegetables out there. I do apples. I do all kinds of things. And they see a real world connection. Okay, I have 5 different apples. Let's taste test them. Which one do you think is the sweetest? Oh, wow. And that one has the highest concentration of solutes. And so it's a direct connection. I like that one.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, what are you having students turn in for labs? Because that's also a question. I think the old school method that a lot of us did in high school is you had this really formal lab notebook that you were keeping up with and you're doing formal reports, but not everyone does that. So I just like to always hear, what are you having them turn in?
Usually there's a lab packet that goes with it. It's where they have the directions. And there was a couple years ago, another teacher, she posted a bunch of labs and she had it broken up in this little chart. And so there was all these questions as you went through the lab. And so she, I modeled it after her and I've made those little packets. And then they turn that in. That's a completion check. Did you do the lab? Did you answer these questions? Because things that are cheatable, I'm less likely to put a lot of weight on and a lot of my energy grading.
Same.
So they do a lab presentation. So I'll put break up the lab. So for example, the diffusion lab. I'll have one group that does the agar cube. I'll do another group that's doing the dialysis tubes and another group that does the potato, the apple, the whatever. Okay. And they will present their findings to the group. I can do like lab posters. We can do kind of
like a gallery walk, like a round
yes,
robin. Yeah.
we can have them do a gallery walk or round robin, and they can like present independently to each other. So I kind of mix it up each time so that we're doing something different.
Love
But then
that.
also it requires that they actually know what they did in the lab, not what AI or their friend or someone else did. Now, the labs that are very mathematical based, that each group is going to have different data,
Yeah.
I do check their calculations because I want to make sure that they know how to do that math if that math shows up on the exam. And that's when this whole podcast is about simplified stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I simplify grading labs is I use Excel. If there's a calculation they're going to have to do, I set it up in Excel with that calculation. I type in their data chart and it calculates everything for me. I check that their math is right and I move on. That way it doesn't take me a long time to check their math because it's important to me that they know how to do the math, but it's also not important to spend hours grading their labs.
That's so true. And I love your perspective. I always am so grateful to have full-time teachers on the podcast because I just think and hearing what you're doing, it's so good for people just to hear like, you don't have to do it the way it was when you were in high school. Like, I think some of us are still stuck in this, like, it's a science class, so there has to be a typed lab report for every single thing. And it's like, no, what matters most? Like, I'm kind of like you where it's like, I felt like mine were always getting their panties in a wad, wanting to get the lab right, that they weren't actually learning. And I'm like, no, like this is all experiential. Like, I'm going to check that you're doing stuff for completion, but I care that you can like have skills like graph and calculation, like what you're saying. I want you to be more invested and not be worrying about getting things written down. Like, be here in the lab.
And labs in high school don't usually work out correctly. So it's interesting to be like, okay, what did you do? Like, what went wrong and why did it go wrong? So we can learn from these experiences because you're having these high school lab experiences and you're going to go off to college and you're going to apply that information, that knowledge, that experience to other labs. And depending on what you want to do in your future life, then you're going to need to use those tools.
It's so true. I always say, I'm like, error analysis is the most important thing we can learn from a lab. Like, I think to be a successful teacher, you need a certain dose of humility to be okay up front that, like, if the lab doesn't go well, it's not necessarily your fault. Like, who cares? Let's just learn together why it didn't go well.
Exactly.
Okay, so I love that for what you turn in. I like how you kind of switch it up. Let's continue on that conversation of grading, just in general, of all the things they're doing in your class. What are you actually collecting and grading for accuracy? How do you motivate them just to do stuff if you're not grading? I feel like a lot of people have a problem with that.
So I look at everything. So I'm one of those teachers that if I'm going to ask you to do something, I'm going to look at it. When I was in my student teaching, there was a teacher that I worked with, and she had this check plus, check minus system. It's a progressive grade. It's do you understand the information? On those things, I'm checking them for accuracy. I'm assisting them with their issues and their errors, but I'm not putting a hard grade on it. The lowest grade you'll make is an 85%, which is a check minus. That means you are clueless, but it at least gets them to try. Like, I'm not asking you to, have all the bells and the whistles. I need you to just at least put your foot forward and try something. And that's kind of one of my take-ins is that I can get them to at least try the math, try to do the work, and then we can readjust and realign. For responses, I definitely grade for accuracy, but I have a scaling that I use with the national averages. So to motivate the students on that, I don't think I've mentioned my FRQ notebook. I think later on we'll talk about those.
Yeah.
But I have this FRQ notebook. And if they beat the national average, they get a coupon to get themselves a water bottle sticker. And the goal is that they then put that water bottle sticker on their notebook. So it becomes like this whole like, oh, look at all the times I beat the national average, which is kind of an incentive whenever you do your stuff. Plus, when you get an FRQ back and you made a 4 on it, but you found out that the nation got a 3, you're like, whoa, I'm better than the nation. And it kind of gives a little morale boost. And it also helps them to realize they don't have to be perfect. I think as students, like especially our AP students, they're perfectionists. They think they have to be the best at all times. And the best is just that you did your best, that you tried, you put everything you had for it. You can't be better than your best. And I think that seeing that, okay, I did my best, I tried, and I beat the nation, I'm doing good.
Right.
So I think that's helpful.
I think it's so smart to use the scaling like that because, like you said, the test is scaled. I will never forget taking my AP Chem test in high school and they're like coming back and crying because I like left 2 FRQs. I didn't answer all of them all the way, all this stuff. And then I ended up with a 4. And I was like, what the heck? I'm like, people must have left so much blank because I left stuff blank and I still got a 4. And so I think that's so wise to encourage students like who are so used to it has to be like 100. And it's like, no, it doesn't. You just like I literally typed that as you said it. The best is just that you did your best. Put that on a sticker. I love that.
When we get close to the AP exam, that's really what my tell pushing to the kids is like anyone ever can ask you to do is your best. And so I try to motivate that with my students, the goal is little bits of pieces and small growth. So I never tell my students how they did on their test. Like I give them the cut score, I give them the breakdown, but I don't give them their raw score. And so when the students are struggling, I then say, okay, I don't want to show you the raw score, but let me show this to you. Okay. First test, you made a 10% in your multiple choice. Second test, you got a 30%. Do you see that's a 20% increase?
Right.
What did you do different? And we can really time into, okay, how did we grow? Now let's grow some more because you don't need to get it all done in one day. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Let's do it piece by piece. Let's kind of take what's helpful and grow from that.
Totally. So how do you keep, because I'm like obsessed. Like when I taught AP Bio, I only used released FRQ questions and stuff. Like, I'm not writing FRQs. Like I want you to use these. But now, I mean, that was pre-AI days and stuff. So how are you preventing students from this perfection pressure to cheat on anything that you're doing, knowing that they can look up the FRQs and stuff? How are you getting them to do it like authentically?
Well, I kind of accidentally give them the resources in advance to know it. So on my website, I actually have all the FRQs laid out. Now, I don't tell them to go to my website, but
Right.
some of them, as they're preparing, they go there, they find the FRQ videos and they practice them. But watching someone else do it, seeing the scoring guideline is different than you writing it yourself.
Yeah.
Because AP doesn't require you to just state the rubric back to them.
Right.
Those are scoring guidelines. So you have to show me the bulk and the understanding. So even if a kid does see their question in advance, they usually don't score super high flying. And then those in-class ones are they're low stakes. It's only a 20-point grade in the grade book. If you're going to cheat on these, it's not going to change your grade that much. But this 200-point test that's going to go in where 50% of it is your FRQs that you've never seen before, that are not open access, that are secure from AP Classroom, you're probably not going to be able to get those questions unless you've done the work in the front end. And that's just my theory. And we can't stop cheating. We can prevent it. We can do things to assist with it. If you teach multiple classes of AP, then do a different FRQ question in each class for your in-class ones or for your tests. I did it more for the test ones than I did for the in-class ones, but that inhibits them going, oh, the FRQ is this, and then stating some key words that someone can then go Google because it's a different question by the next class.
Right. That's great.
The way that I do my grading of my test takes into account the national averages on those FRQs. So I'm able to have a different grade in each class, but still be comparable.
So you're doing a point system in your grade book. You're putting everything in at different point values. You're not putting in percents.
Correct. Everything's at different points. So quizzes are 20 points, fair responses are 20 points, and the exams are 200, and then all the corrections are 10 points each.
I love a point system, and I feel like it's so underrated. But I'm like, it just makes so much sense because then you're like, this is 5 points. And so then it takes the pressure off. Like a bell ringer, 5 points. It's not a big deal. Whereas this is, however many more. I love that.
Our computer system, at our school, it requires us to do a certain percent as progressive and a certain percent being summative. So when I do that, I make it so that a certain percent of their grade is the test, and a certain percent is the quizzes and whatnot. But I do kind of try to balance it, but I use the point system. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Let's talk more about FRQs. You mentioned FRQ notebook. You mentioned you're doing FRQs on Wednesdays. What's your kind of approach with FRQs and helping students really rock them?
So the first week of school, it could be the second day of school. It really doesn't matter to me. I give them their first response. And so anybody that's teaching AP Bio that's following 2017, number 1 is the question that I will use every single year. It is about these bees and about them ingesting caffeine, and then that helps their memory. But the question does not require any type of biology knowledge. It's a graphing question. So can you graph? Do you know how to do error bars? And then it's about bees and pollen and the kids know about bees. They've known about them for years. So it's a really easy question to kind of get them started with it. And then so As you said, I do the free response notebook. And so what they do is they'll glue the question in, they'll write their answer, and then they glue a scoring guide in. And so first semester, they score themselves. So they'll go through that scoring guideline and they'll check their own answers. And they highlight in the question where they got the point, and then on the rubric where they got that point, so that I can see, okay, this is what you think you got. This is where you think you have it. So I can assist them, like, you didn't go as in depth as you needed to here, or your word choice isn't as preferable as it needed to be. I don't think AP would take that. And it allows me to realign them. And then for their corrections on it, they just rewrite the exemplar. So on AP Central, they have all these exemplars of like the person who made the perfect score, and they'll just rewrite that. And so it lets them see in kid speak what would get them points. Like, how do I best write these free responses to get the most amount of points out of them? And that's, of course, in their FRQ notebook. And so like by the time they get to the AP exam, they've got these all aligned. I grade their FRQs, so for accuracy, and when they grade themselves, there's like a accuracy scoring, like how close are you to me? So it makes them be honest with themselves, like, I really didn't say this like I needed to, like I was on the right track, but I didn't say it. So it helps them to get that understanding of how they need to write FRQs. And then second semester, they flip papers and they score each other. So can you get someone who is not your teacher and not you to understand what you're saying? Because come May, someone else is grading them. It's going to be some college professor, some other AP bio teacher. Can they read your handwriting? Can they understand what you're saying? Like, it's about making sure they are clear in their writings.
So in that first semester, are they grading themselves first and then you're looking to see it and their own grade, or so they go first?
They go first. So as soon as they are done with the FRQ, I give them 20 minutes in class. So if they finish before the timer goes off, they get up and grab their scoring guideline and start grading. If not, then the timer goes off and they grade it. And then they glue everything, they turn it in. And then I am, I don't like to have things hanging over my head to grade. So I do grade them at night. If you're wondering how I'm able to grade FRQ so fast, it's because I'm an AP reader. So every year we're trained to how we can efficiently, appropriately grade FRQs. And so I'm able to kind of get them done in a relative short amount of time. Some teachers, they are unable to balance the grading of them. And if you have a short time period, then having them grade each other is still a helpful tool.
Yeah.
And having them grade themselves is still helpful. So, maybe pick one a month that you're going to take home and grade, or like kind of balance it that way. Cause you don't have to grade every single one, but it is helpful to help your students realign.
And I love that you do it so early in the year, because I think one of the huge things, like when I taught it, was convincing my students to not be distracted by, like, I can just think of one student in particular I use that question being like, I don't know anything about bees. And it's like, no one's expecting you to know anything about bees to like answer this question. It's like getting them over that hump of like, they're giving you all the information you need. It's like, can you analyze it and discern it and then utilize it to, answer these questions? So I love that you're doing that early on. I think that's great. Okay, so and is the FRQ notebook like a composition notebook?
Yeah, it's a composition notebook because I don't want them to be able to tear papers out of it. If you've ever looked at a composition book, you know that it's like sewed in the middle.
Yeah.
So if you tear a page from the front, it falls out from the back.
Yeah.
So I don't want them to remove anything. I want this to be them being able to see the growth of their writing style. I want it to be a compilation of FRQs with feedback on them so they can use that to study. So yeah, it's a composition book. And I've bought, like, when Walmart has them for like 25 cents, I'll go and buy a bunch. So if there's a student who, they can't afford to buy a notebook or whatever happens on that first one, I can easily take it out of the cabinet and hand them a notebook, and then nobody's without their resources that they need.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk more about exam review, because as this is airing, it's in like high exam review season. So what are you doing in your class versus like what are you expecting students to do at home?
So I give them a notebook. There's a review notebook. I assigned it in February. And so they have more or less 2.5 months to complete this notebook. It's a compilation of Barron's review, because my school has the Barron's books. You could probably use any of those books. Then there's the AP classroom progress performance checks, and then these topic questions. And then there's a compilation of just other resources that, are easily out there. I believe I have this linked in the show notes as well if you're wanting to see what my notebook looks like. And so that's just like what we're working on. And so when we get closer to the exam, like, I'm done with content about 3 weeks before the exam, and I'll just let them work on that in class, but then I also will do like common miss questions from practice exams, or we'll do free response round robin, these FRQs where they can go to a table, start writing the FRQ, and then somebody else comes in and they can modify the FRQ. And it's like kind of this like moving around the room at some of these questions that they haven't seen before to practice. In February, I start something called Race to the Slopes. If you haven't figured out, my students are also penguins. So they're like running to the top of like a hill to slide down, like, penguins like to slide.
Yeah.
So I call them Race to the Slopes. There's 20 quizzes. They're each 9 questions and they're based off of the 2020 practice exams. And they have 12 minutes to do them. And so it's just a random grouping of those questions. So that kind of helps them to review and prepare because they just get a quick quiz every once in a while. And then we'll go over those common miss ones before the AP exam. And so it's just I don't know. I just do my best.
Of course. I love it. So you're really expecting them to do that packet though at home. You're giving them a little bit of time in class, but the review packet is mostly at home.
Yes. And I pace them out. So I believe that when you're preparing for a high stakes test, SAT, ACT, AP exam, GRE, whatever these high stakes tests you have in your life, it's not I'm going to study the weekend before. I'm not going to study a week before. It needs to be a little bit every day to build that knowledge and that capacity for it. Like on Mondays, they'll do like some quick little activities off of National Bio. On Tuesday, they'll watch some videos. On Wednesday, they'll do some practice questions in the AP classroom. And so it's a little bit each day. So by the time they get to the AP exam, they have reviewed it all. It's not a laborious, overwhelming project.
Yeah, that's great. And do you give them a grade for it? Like for doing all that work? Yeah.
It's 250 points. So as I said before, a test is 200 points. It is more than a test grade. And so it's meant to kind of help to cushion their grade. As long as you do the things that are in the notebook, you will automatically get the grade.
Right.
So it's a way that you can get a 250 out of 250 in your summative category to help bring up that category, make sure it's a, better grade.
Totally. Or do you do any sort of like full timed length of the test in advance? Like I know a lot of teachers will be like, we'll come in on a Saturday and I'll give them a full practice exam. Do you do that?
Yeah. So this year I'm doing it, I think on April 19th on that Saturday, and I'm going to model it like the hybrid exam. So anybody who's listening that hasn't heard yet, AP Bio is going to be a hybrid exam. So their multiple choice will be online. So I'm going to give it to them through AP Classroom. They'll take their multiple choice online. I'll give them their free response through AP Classroom, and they're going to hand write those FRQs, and then I'll get those scored for them, which will help me to data analyze to tell them their strengths and their weaknesses for their multiple choice. And then they also get to see some FRQs and they'd see what it's like to sit through a 3-hour exam.
Yeah.
Because some of them don't know that anguish. I also will give one in my class. So I think it's a week or 2 weeks before the AP exam, I'm going to have them do multiple choice one day and then for response the following day because I have 90 minutes. So I can give them the whole section. There are some teachers I know that will do like an in-school field trip. So their students are able to go to a certain location in that building and they will take a practice exam during school. So there are ways to get around it if you don't have 90 minutes in your own classrooms to do this so that you're able to still give them practice without it being a Saturday because some of us are unable to go to school on a Saturday.
Right. So what is your advice then? I don't know if you struggle with this, but there's always those AP students that are in like 4 APs at the same time. And so they're having a hard time doing all of the extra stuff because they're doing it in 4 of their classes. So do you have any advice for the teacher who has those students? It's kind of exasperating.
That's my students. My students are in many, many AP classes. So it's all about helping them find their balance and finding their schedule. So early in the year, I tell students, hey, if you need help with your balance, let me know. And they'll give me a list of all the classes they're taking on what days. And then I build them a schedule. And then they modify the schedule as they need. It does kind of help them to figure out, okay, I do have more time in the day. If I don't play with my cell phone and I don't do video games for 4 hours a day, I can get all my work done.
Yeah.
So it does help them with that. Sometimes they see kind of overlaps in the information or they see overlaps with like their friend groups. So I have some that do extracurriculars or do sports and there's other people from their classes in that sport or that club with them. And as they're doing their warm-up throws, they make sure they warm up with the same kid and they quiz each other as they go back and forth. So it's kind of about using your time wisely. When you sit on a bus, instead of listening to your music, you could be listening to a podcast about your subject or watching a video over the information so that you're, not wasting your time. but I don't think that your life should be full of school. So there's a
Right.
balance.
It's tricky. Yeah, no, it's tricky. So that's why I always like to ask. I think that's great that to be like, let's just look at your schedule together and like come up with a plan. I think that's really kind of you to do that. Okay, so with when this is airing, it's going to be contract season. So some teachers are going to be finding out like in the next few weeks that they're going to teach AP Bio for the first time next school year. And so what would be your best advice for them? Because they might be feeling excited, maybe a little anxious and overwhelmed. What would be your advice for them?
First thing, go ahead and join the National AP Bio Facebook group. In there, there's tons of tools and resources that will help support you. Number 2, download the CED. So the curriculum and exam description from AP Central. And the exam and the stuff is changing slightly for next year. So make sure you pull next year's information and map it out. Okay. Say, okay, the exam is going to be roughly this date. How long do I want for exam review? How long do I need to spend in each unit? You don't have to tell exactly what you're doing every day, but reverse engineer it, figure out when you want to be by what time of the school year. And then, things come up. We're going to have random pep rallies and other stuff that goes in. And then once you get that built, figure out how you want to run your class. Like, so I said that I do FRQs every Wednesday. Do you want to do an FRQ each week? Go ahead and just build that in and just kind of figure out the big picture of the topics you want to cover by when. And then as you work through it, you can figure out specific labs and activities. I would probably stick with the AP labs and making sure that I do like at least one per unit while you're trying to map. Just look at the ones that are available and pick one of those. You do not have to do everything. So just find something that works with what you have in your building, because we all have different tools in our building. And then, of course, if there is somebody at your school who is currently teaching AP Bio, go ahead and talk to them. Say, hey, what did you feel were the best labs, or what did you feel were the most important components for me to do in my classroom? Get whatever you can from those previous people. And I'll be honest with you, like, I got many things from people before I started teaching, and I probably have never opened half of those things.
Yeah.
But it's good to have that toolbox. If you're in a bind, you're like, I really need an activity on, I don't know, evolution. You can quickly go and grab the evolution activity, look over and say, okay, yes, this is perfect. I'm going to use this versus, the aimless searching through the internet. Like sometimes the internet doesn't give us the best things.
Right. And that's where I have a love-hate relationship with that AP Bio group, because it's amazing. Like you should 1000% join, but then you're overwhelmed because you're seeing people who have taught it for 15, 20 years. So they're really doing a lot of extra stuff because they because they have the capacity. So you have to kind of protect yourself in there, but it is so valuable. I'll link that in the show notes too.
When you're talking about like your first year, it's important to just remember that you're doing your best. All you can ever ask the kids is to do their best, and all they can ask of you is for you to do your best. So do not worry about trying to like be the bells and whistles and do everything, because there's no way to do everything. If you look at my website, you will see like, oh my God, she's amazing. But that is a multiple years of curation. That is not anything I do in 1 year. My master's professor said to me, pick one thing you're going to do right each year. And after a couple years, now you're going to have multiple tools in your toolbox. So first year, second year, whatever year it is you're on, pick one thing that you're going to do right. So your first year, you're just going to survive that year.
Literally.
You're just going to prepare the kids the best way you can and just get through it. And then once you figure out what things you liked and didn't like, you know how to modify for future years. Don't worry about being the perfect teacher. You're going to do your best, and that's all anyone could ever ask of you.
Yeah, I had all my AP students I'd already had for biology at some point, and I write all my biology resources from scratch because it's like my passion and I love it. So then when I had them for AP, they were like, what is this trash? Because I was just like pulling anything I could find. Like it was not nicely formatted. It was not pretty. It was not my aesthetic. But I just was like, guys, I'm pulling stuff the night before. Like I'm learning this with you. And I was just honest with them. Like, we're going to be figuring out this is not going to be my normal effort, because it's not going to be like the 10th time I've taught this like it was when I had you in honors bio. Which, speaking of honors bio, I know yours is unique because you have the block, the double block, and they've never taken bio one. But I feel like most places, people take biology first and then take AP bio later. What do you think those bio one teachers listening should be focusing on to help prepare those students well if they are going to take AP one day?
Graphing, making sure that the students are actually looking at graphs, and can they make a graph? Can they read a graph? Because AP tends to be very analytical. So if they've never seen a graph or haven't seen a graph in years, it does help them to kind of have that little bump in. Also doing like CERs. If you could just do like one CER a week, you're at least helping them to make connection between the content that you're teaching and then the why, if you may. So I think that definitely putting those kind of things in, you have to prepare for your own class, but if you're able to kind of help them understand the importance of reading, understand the importance of, looking at diagrams and being analytical, then it will help them in AP.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, student apathy. Everyone wants to know, how are we managing? Because it's hard out there. So how are you motivating unmotivated students that you may have?
So this is totally the answer that everyone gives, and I'm so sorry, but it's about relationships. So if your kids have a relationship with you, if you get to them at their level, then it really does help. So I have a student who's currently struggling, and I pulled her aside. I was like, hey, what's going on? And she, opened up. She told me what was going on at home. And I was like, you know what? I get it. I've been through that. I know what you're talking about. And we work together to try to get to a level of, okay, I need you to do this much work. And I understand you're going through that, but this is the level that we need to be at. And kind of she works with me and I work with her and we get to a good ground. I also have students who they see how hard I work. And your kids know if you're being honest with them. They know if you're being, real. So be real with your kids. Don't try to be like this amazing person on a stage, like, oh, I went through AP Bio and I was perfect. So you should be perfect. No, like we're real people. They're real people. Let's actually be real. They see how hard I work. And sometimes they don't care about biology. They hate biology, but they're willing to do the work because they like me and because I'm going to come into class, I'm going to give my best and they want to give their best for me. Like I've had kids like come after the AP exam, like, Michelle, I'm so sorry. Like I did my best, but I just didn't know the stuff. And I say, that's okay. I'm proud of you. I'm so excited that you did your best. Like that is all anyone could ever ask of you. And just kind of helping them to understand and realize that you're there for them at their high points and you're there for them at their low points. That's really what it comes up to, is just being with your kids.
No, it's such an important reminder because you're right. That is like the foundation of all things. Like I always say, I feel like classroom management issues like on a class level are often handled procedurally, whereas on an individual level, it's all relationally. Like you're having conflict with this one student or this small group, like you got to get in there with just them and you guys have that connection. I think that's so important. Switching gears before we close up, is there a concept you feel like you teach really well or like maybe in a unique way that you would love? I would like to give you a chance. I know you're not going to want to humble brag, but just like let us know. I always think it's encouraging to be like, if you have something you're like, I'm excited by how I teach this.
The activities that allow them to really interact a lot kind of help me, or I feel like are really good. So we model what the sodium potassium pump looks like with a neuron. So they get to use little pom-poms and they throw those at each other. So I do that really well, like modeling. We also do electron transport chain. And I have them standing on the table, one kid's sitting on the table, and we basically make the electron transport chain. And they pump the protons across the membrane. So it allows them to visibly see the movement of the protons. And then they understand, okay, that's why there's a lower pH, a higher concentration. That's how we're able to, synthesize ATP. And it allows them to actually touch the information. We use Kim Foglia's transcription translation activity. We use the 3D molecular design stuff. Anytime that they're able to really have hands-on stuff, I feel like is when they do the best in understanding, and less of me on the stage, because I could tell you something until I'm blue in the face, but until you actually have to do it yourself, that's when you really learn.
It's so true. They love anything like physical. It's super helpful. So helpful tools and resources, things like AP Classroom, AI, there's so many websites nowadays. What are those things are really helping you right now and how are you using them?
I love HHMI. So if they have not used HHMI Biointeractive, there is a massive resource and they're all free. They give you the teacher handout. They give you a student handout. They oftentimes there's manipulatives. You can print those manipulatives out. They've got videos that collaborate with them. So I love their HHMI stuff. Learn Genetics is a lot of fun. It's very like niche. Like there's only like the stuff about genetics up in there, but I do like the mouse party with there. So they can look at neurotransmitters and they can see the connection of, cell communication. Cause I feel like that sometimes we get so like honed in on what's in the AP Bio textbook that we forget that biology is life and like you can use other examples, and the AP exam isn't going to use directly stuff from our textbook. They're going to give them some other example that they've got to apply. So let them do some fun stuff like Learn Genetics has the mouse party. I love Mini PCR. They've started this new online digital like lab thing. And so they're able to walk through. So if you don't have the Mini PCR software at your school, then you can easily use the online. You can act as a guest and you can access everything through those labs. And I did that when we were virtual for Snow Day recently, and the kids loved it.
That's awesome. Are you using AI at all?
I hate AI. AI is not my friend. So I've been to many trainings, and in those trainings, they talk about that you can use AI to formulate lab data. And so I find that that's a good way that we can maybe create our own FRQs. You mentioned that you didn't like writing them when you taught the class. So this is a way that you can take some pre-made FRQ, but then change the data so that they have to analyze it differently. They've got to graph something different. So it allows us to open that up. I think that AI could be good in terms of helping students write better, but I still haven't jumped completely on board with the use of AI.
Yeah. I'm still super hesitant. I feel like the more I force myself, the more cool things I find, but it is such a learning curve.
It is. How can you appropriately type the stuff in there to get it what you want? Like I sit there for hours, like, I'm going to do this. No, I don't want that. I want this. Like, and you just keep trying to get it to understand you. And
it's a lot, but I love that idea about the FRQ and changing out the data. That's a great, simple idea. I love that.
Just be careful because AI is not logical sometimes. So some of the data does not make sense. I think the example that the person used at that training was they did different plants and they had come up with some plants that just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So just be careful when you're looking at those things that you actually ensure that you've got real things.
I know. I always say AI sucks at science. It's very smart. I'm good at science. So, okay. Last question I ask every guest, because this is the Secondary Science Simplified podcast. What is one way you simplified your life recently? It could be in or out of the classroom.
Can it be 3 things?
Of course. Why not?
So one thing is there's a book I read by Robin Jackson. It's called Never Work Harder Than Your Students. I've looked at this book like, really? I have to read this book? Like, come on. And as you're going through the book, it had a really good resonating topic. And that was, if your students know what to do when they don't know, then they can do it before they don't know. I know that sounds weird, but so like if you give your students remediation based on their quizzes or their tests or whatnot, and they have to do XYZ, if you already make XYZ available before they take that assessment, they can do that in advance. And so it's kind of like they will do better on the assessment because they had all those resources that you were going to remediate them with. So that was kind of one thing I took from that book. I also use mail merge like all the time. So I give my quizzes on paper, but then I put them into Excel. And so Excel allows me to then send out a personalized email to all the students with how they did on their quiz, with like breakdown of, okay, in this section, this is how you did. This section, this is how you did. I also have personalized feedback for each individual answer. Like, okay, you got number 1 wrong. Here kind of helps walk you through like how to better understand that information. So it resists the students from needing to cheat because like you've now explained to them that question. You've helped them to better understand it. And I mail merge that way. Parent communication, same way, mail merge. So, you've got 100 kids in your class. You have to send an email to every parent telling them how their student is doing in class. Put it like a generic email, put their specific grade into the Excel file. It will automatically slot that in with each kid and send a personalized email to each parent. The parents think you've taken all this time to write their kids individually, but in actuality, it took you maybe 30 minutes to write the email, maybe 10 minutes to put the data in Excel. You press send, and now you've got 100 emails gone out personalized to the parents with their students' information, which is great. And then, as I said, the lab report grading with Excel as well. So I guess it was only 2.
How'd you learn all of that with Excel? You just self-taught?
Another teacher said they did it, and I rolled my eyes at them for about 5 years. And then one day I, saw them do it, and I was like, this is perfection. I can put them in groups. I can randomize practice worksheets. So like if I want to do, I don't know, genetics problems, I can switch out the numbers on the problems and they each get a different worksheet, which can inhibit cheating. So there's a lot of tools for it. It just makes it so that I can automate quickly.
I love that. Excel's like your original AI, You've been doing it before AI was even cool.
mail merge isn't even new tech. I
Yeah.
think it's probably been around since like the 70s or 80s. Like it is not new tech.
I know. I've been printing Christmas card labels with mail merge for decades. So,
Yes, yes.
hey, thank you so much for coming. How can our listeners find you? What's the best way? Your Instagram, your website? What would be the best way to connect with you?
To connect with me is honestly on Instagram, AP Bio Penguins. If you're wanting resources, it's the website, so apbiopenguins.weebly.com. I have a ton of resources that I share out on my Instagram. That's when I tell the students about new things, but everything is housed on the website. So if there's a resource you're looking for, that's really how you'll get to everything. It's all a data bank there.
That's awesome. Seriously, thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate you coming.
Just remember, AP Bio Penguins are just success. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode and my interview with Tiffany. Thank you for your grace. If you hear my spring allergy stuffiness in my nose, or if you could hear the construction that's been happening in the background of the recording of this, hopefully you could still hear the epic content that Tiffany had to share. And there are so many links, like I have to get to you. Never have the show notes ever been more important than this episode. So many things she referenced, so many things I want you to be able to get your hands on. So be sure to go to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 176. That's episode 176, and you'll find every single thing we talked about. And if you're listening to the podcast and you've never left a review and you teach biology or an AP course of any kind, today is your turn. Leave a review for the podcast. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.